Naruto is dying. And I don't mean he'll die one day, I mean he's currently in the process of dying. You see, it's been revealed to us that being the Jinchuriki of multiple tailed beasts simultaneously actually imparts you a disease that will slowly shut down your chakra network and kill you. And the only person to ever suffer from this disease prior to Naruto was Hagoromo, as Hagoromo is the only other person on Earth who ever has been the Jinchuriki of more than one tailed beast simultaneously and lived to tell the story. Now obviously Obito and Madara were Jinchurikis of the 10 tails, but they didn't live long enough for this sickness to afflict them. But information that just became much more widely available is pointing at Naruto's inevitable death. And the only thing that can save him is Sakura, Sasuke, and the stars. Because here's the thing, Hagoromo was able to recover from this disease, which means that Naruto can also do it, but he can't find that cure on his own. So let me tell you about how Sakura and Sasuke can use the stars to heal Naruto. Before we get into all that, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you guys want to celebrate Naruto manga making its return to the mainstream, guys, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, or instead of talking Naruto manga, I talk, well, literally any other manga. But before we get into all that, guys, today we gotta talk about one of our favorite reoccurring sponsors to the page, Liquid IV. You see, Liquid IV holds a special place in my heart. As somebody who spends 9 to 10 hours a day talking, I need a lot of water and therefore a lot of hydration. Otherwise, I start to sound like a 60-year-old smoker. And honestly, one of the ways that I keep myself hydrated and sounding as gorgeous as this is Liquid IV. From personal experience, Liquid IV's flavors have always been incredible, so I'm very excited to try this. To make a Liquid IV, all you need is a cup, a packet, and some water. Simply pour the packet into a glass of water, add 16 ounces of water, and stir. And then it's just down the hatch. Oh my god, that's delicious. This is a daily drinker flavor right here. And the beauty of Liquid IV, y'all, is the fact that you don't have to talk as much as I do to get the benefits that this drink provides. If you had a rough night out and now you're not feeling so good, Liquid IV can help you. You're dehydrated and you have a headache, Liquid IV can help you. You just had a big game or a big run and now you feel dehydrated and deflated? Liquid IV can help you. I think we could all agree that we could stand to be better hydrated. And the hydration multipliers in Liquid IV will guarantee that you get the hydration level you're looking for. So what are you guys waiting for? Use the discount code on the screen right now for 20% off your order and free shipping. Or use the link in my description or pinned comment. A hydrated weeb is a powerful weeb. So what do you do when you're faced with the problem of the most powerful man on Earth slowly coming to grips with a disease that will kill him? I mean, we've seen mysterious diseases with no cure kill people before. Look at Kimimaru or Itachi. But we never thought it would be imaginable that a disease like this would also affect Naruto. But unfortunately for us, he's just as human as anybody else. And as this disease begins to ravage Naruto's body, he suffers seizures that bring him to his knees. He receives heart palpitations that don't allow him to get out of his chair. He's essentially rendered useless. And there's only one way to cure this disease. See, as I stated earlier, this exact same disease also ravaged the body of Hagoromo. But fortunately for Hagoromo, he had a friend who was an astronomy master. That friend was Tataru Janmaru, a man who founded the Astronomy Research Institute in the land of Ridaku, a foreign land with next to no shinobi. But this founder of the Astronomy Research Institute is long dead, along with Hagoromo. And the Astronomy Research Institute itself has fallen into decay, now acting as a prison for some of the land of Ridaku's most heinous criminals. This prison now basically operates as a labor camp, with prisoners being used as free labor to build a new telescope. And while the prisoners toil away at the rock that this prison is situated on, they're never any closer to the building of this telescope. But one of these prisoners sticks out, truly a man who doesn't seem very similar to his peers. And that man would be inmate number 487, Sasuke Uchiha. See, Sasuke has broken into this prison that was once an Astronomy Research Institute, with hopes that he would get his hands on the cure for the disease that plagued Hagoromo almost 2,000 years ago. One of the first things we see Sasuke do while in this prison is being propositioned by a fellow inmate. See, this fellow inmate had an inkling of an idea that Sasuke might actually be a shinobi. And at this point that the fellow inmate reveals to Sasuke that he himself can use chakra to a small degree, and therefore he believes that he and Sasuke would have no issues scaling the wall and escaping from the prison. But it's at that point that Sasuke tells the inmate that he's in the prison on purpose and he's looking for something. And thus he tells his fellow inmate that he won't be accompanying him during his attempted escape tonight. And this was a good idea. You see, because as the man tries to escape, he uses chakra to cling himself to the wall to get over the wall very easily. However, as he descends down the other side of the wall, he realizes there's a bipedal dinosaur waiting for him. And this bipedal dinosaur is named Menno. See, Menno almost preternaturally knew exactly where this man would descend down the wall. And even though he was able to scale the wall so easily and escape from his cell because the cells aren't locked in this prison, Menno caught the attempted escapee. And he tore into his body, killing him almost instantly. But here's the thing, Menno is the guard of this entire prison. A bipedal dinosaur with preternatural abilities to find any possible escapees. And because of that, the prisoners within this prison are allowed to roam freely because it's understood that if they try to escape, they will die. But Menno isn't also the guard, he's also the executioner and the thing that's supposed to instill fear every single one of these prisoners. So Menno took the body of the man he just killed and dragged it to the middle of the prison where he continued to eat it. However, as Menno was trying to make an example of this man, another prisoner thought that this would be a fantastic time to escape while Menno was distracted, only to once again be caught by Menno and become the next in a long series distractions. And as Menno tears into the second person, Sasuke observes it. A terrifying animal, but of what origin? Sasuke had never seen a dinosaur before. And honestly, who can blame him? And after Sasuke's done with his manual labor for the day, he returns to his cell, where his cellmates are playing board games and gambling cigarettes. They ask Sasuke if he wants to play, and initially he says no. But after that, Sasuke realizes that he needs his cellmates for an excursion, specifically to act as a watch out for him as he attempts to break into the other wing of the prison. You see, this once astronomy research center, now turned prison, has an east and a west wing. The east wing is where all of the prisoners are kept, while the west wing is a bit of a mystery. So Sasuke says,
I don't have any cigarettes, but I do have this gem.
Now this is technically a chakra infused gem that's able to create wind release. And he says, if you beat me in this board game, I'll give you this gem, but if I win, you have to do me an unspecified favor. Of course, Sasuke cheats using ninjutsu and he wins. And once Sasuke wins, he asks his cellmate to leave his cell with him. And while Sasuke initially wanted him to be a lookout, he refuses because he's afraid of Menno. So Sasuke then asks him to simply just make a distraction with the guards and then return to the cell, to which his cellmate agrees. Sasuke, using this distraction, transfers over to the eastern building. I misspoke earlier. The prisoners stay in the western building. He went to the eastern building. You see, Sasuke quickly realized that the eastern building is the building where research happens at this prison. It's tightly sealed, nicely furnished, heated by fire, and prisoners are strictly forbidden. And almost as though Menno knew he was making the dash to the eastern building, once Sasuke enters the building, he comes into contact with Menno. Sasuke, thinking that Menno is just an animal and therefore Genjutsu should be able to put it under, tries to put Menno under Genjutsu, but to no avail. Sasuke, not wanting to expose himself as a shinobi or make a scene, decides to flee. But Menno's too fast for him to flee. And as Menno begins to overtake Sasuke, he decides that the only thing he can do is fight back. It's at this point that Sasuke does a thing that is a surprise to many. See, at this point, Sasuke creates a dagger in his hand. Out of what? Ice. See, Sasuke has yin and yang release. He also has water and wind release. And we've learned from the presence of Moegi being able to use wood release by combining earth and water release in combination with their yin and yang release, that those with yin and yang release can combine two chakra natures to create a Kekkei Genkai. And with this ice dagger, Sasuke stabs Menno in the stomach. Menno, possibly fatally injured, yelps and runs away, leaving pools of blood. Sasuke, once again not wanting to be exposed, returns to his cell. And while Sasuke's laboring, the following day, he sees Menno with no sign of injury. And it's at that point that he's confronted by the prison's warden, Zansuru. You see, Zansuru is aware of Sasuke's encounter with Menno. Sasuke, surprised by this, resorts to his favorite opening trick, Genjutsu. However, it's at this point that he realizes that Zansuru has a glass eye, and thus ocular Genjutsu is ineffective on him. Zansuru sees what he's trying to do and tells Sasuke that he'll never be able to break his control over Menno. You see, because up to this moment, Sasuke had assumed that Menno was more likely than not a summoning of the prison warden, since Menno did exactly what Zansuru wanted at any moment, on top of being able to appear almost anywhere. But a summoning animal would have been able to have been placed under Genjutsu. None of this stops Sasuke though, as the following night he sneaks out of his cell once again, only once again to come face to face with Menno. And once again, like the night previous, Menno lunges at Sasuke, trying to swipe at him with his claws. But Sasuke, being one of the fastest people in the universe, actually dodges Menno's attack and uses the opportunity of Menno attacking him to look for the wound that Sasuke inflicted on Menno last night. But he can't find the wound anywhere, not even scarred tissue. Sasuke then assumes the last time he tried to put Menno under Genjutsu was a fluke, and thus he decides to take it a step further by using his 6-tome Rinnegan to cast Genjutsu onto Menno. But once again, to no avail. And as Menno continues attacking, Sasuke continues to try and put him under Genjutsu using his 6-tome Rinnegan, until eventually Menno scratches Sasuke's cheek. And to this point, the Sasuke retreats and pulls out the sword he had stashed on him. Don't Ask where. However, as Sasuke pulls out his sword, he realizes that he's dizzy. And he realizes as he continues to dodge Meno's strikes, they're hitting him with an even greater regularity. And Sasuke's body begins to shut down. And as Meno is about to come in for the kill strike, Sasuke slashes the floorboard under him and drops to the floor below him. Meno pursues him, but Sasuke runs faster than Meno, and Meno loses his scent. Sasuke runs until his strength gives out, but eventually he collapses. Assuming that Meno's claws must be poisonous, Sasuke assumes this is the end, until he hears somebody approaching from behind him, and that person turns out to be his wife, Sakura. Sakura scoops up Sasuke and rushes him to the infirmary. You see, Sakura has been posing as a doctor in this prison for a couple of weeks. And upon examining his body, she realizes that Meno's poison shuts down the chakra pathway system. And since all life is now dependent on chakra, that means if your chakra pathway system gets shut down, you die. Sakura reveals to Sasuke that she infiltrated this prison to give him intel on the mission, because Sasuke, so worried about Naruto, rushed out of the village the second he heard there was a possibility of a cure in the land of Ridaku. Sakura reveals to Sasuke that the founder of the Astronomy Research Center found the cure for Hagoromo by staring at the skies. More specifically, Totaro, the founder, was able to capture a falling star and use its polar particles to heal Hagoromo. But in a touching moment, and really one of the only times we ever see Sasuke do this, he's concerned about Sakura's safety. Upon realizing that Meno can't be put under Genjutsu and also has poisonous claws, he asks Sakura to leave. He asks her why she didn't communicate via messenger hawk, and she says she tried, but everyone she sent was killed by Meno. So Sakura states that the only way to get this information to Sasuke was to infiltrate the prison, and that Meno's immunity to Genjutsu and the fact that his claws are poisonous is all the more reason that she should stay. And on top of all of that, she also wants to improve the living conditions for the prisoners in this prison. You see, to take a quick step back here, this is why I'm so happy that the light novels are finally getting their time in the sun. For the longest time, the casual enjoyer of Naruto has thought Sakura's useless, when in the light novel, she's often depicted as the hero of the story, a caring, charismatic, and very powerful Konaichi. To get back to the story, Sakura then takes a little bit of Sasuke's blood, puts it in a vial, and ties it to a hawk to be analyzed in Konoha. See, in order to not be attacked by Meno, you have to wrap yourself in a red cloth. And apparently, if you wrap a hawk in a red cloth, it won't be attacked by Meno. What I also love about light novels is they usually give us a really good look into characters and their relationships. Because after sending the hawk out, a prisoner comes into the infirmary. And this prisoner is one of Sasuke's cellmates, a man who kept feigning injuries so he could go see the pretty new doctor. And once Sasuke's cellmate, Gigi, starts to explain what's ever ailing him, he begins to flirt with Sakura. He asks her if she's a foreigner because her hair color is very different and goes to touch it. And this drives Sasuke into a fit of jealousy. See, Sasuke had hid himself from his cellmate so he wouldn't be found out. But upon seeing the cellmate hit on Sakura, he goes to stop her out of the shadows before he can touch her hair. And it's at this point that Sakura and Sasuke have to admit that they're married. However, not wanting to reveal their true mission, they say that Sakura got a job as the doctor for the hospital so she could see her beloved husband. And this moment alone is pretty cool to see that Sasuke gives enough shits about Sakura to even feel jealous. But once both Gigi and Sasuke have been healed, they're sent back to their prison cell. And it's during this walk that Sasuke stresses to Gigi that it's very important that their relationship stay private. And it's at this point that Sasuke asks Gigi about the fiance that he had talked about previously, only for Gigi to say that she left him and married somebody else. And this, of all things, actually unsettles Sasuke, telling Gigi that he's often far away from Sakura and therefore feels as though one day she might move on from him. To which Gigi responds,
Why haven't you given Sakura a wedding band yet?
So Sakura can understand their bond even when Sasuke's far away. And this freezes up Sasuke so much that he decides to just change the topic and ask Gigi if he knows of any astronomical maps around. Gigi then says that there'd probably be maps in the archives and that he should ask their other cellmate, Pendra, because Pendra is in charge of the archives. Sasuke then decides that he has to exploit his relationship with Pendra to get to the archives, and thus he asks Pendra about his job in the archives. Pendra says that he works there in order to be eligible for early release, stating that by taking care of these very important books gently, he believes he'll be eligible. To which Sasuke remarks he's not doing an incredible job because he uses the books as pillows. More specifically, the one he's using as a pillow currently is about the ancient dragons who used to live in the land of Ridaku, whose fossils are said to exist under the prison. Sasuke asks if Penjira knows of any astronomical maps within the archives, and Penjira points him in a general direction. The only problem is that direction is in the basement, a place where no prisoners are allowed, because this is where all the books and maps and everything that are too valuable to be put in the hands of prisoners are placed. It's at this point that Sakura overhears their conversation and decides to make a bet with Penjira, who loves betting. She states that if she wins this bet, Penjira will give her the key to the basement, to which Penjira agrees. Sasuke says that he'll put Penjira under genjutsu, but Sakura says no, saying that she was trained by the legendary gambler herself, Tsunade. Except Sakura must not have learned from Tsunade, because she proceeds to mop the floor with Penjira, in a game, by the way, she had never played and that was also very complicated. Once again, relaying the importance and intellect of Sakura. And as Penjira hands over the key to the basement, he reveals to them that not everything might be down there, because a couple of years ago, a lot of the things in the basement were stolen by Orochimaru. And that night, Sasuke meets Sakura in the archives. Upon meeting Sasuke though, Sakura asks if Gigi is asleep, because Gigi has a habit of showing up at the infirmary at all times of day to fake illnesses he doesn't really have. And it's at this point that Sasuke tells her that these illnesses are to get out of work. And it's at that point that Sasuke remembers the conversation he had with Gigi, and he takes Sakura's hand and, using Earth Release, creates a ring to put on her ring finger. Sakura thanks him, but realizes that he's just jealous, and the two of them head down to the basement. Upon getting to the basement, Sakura puts her hand on a wall and admits chakra through the wall. See, Sakura has such precise chakra control, she can funnel chakra into inanimate objects and get a layout of them like she has a Byakugan. And as she funneled chakra into the basement, she checks for traps, of which she found none. And once they make it into the basement, they find the map. But the map isn't a map, it's a book. But the book isn't even map-like. You see, the book is actually just a bigger version of the deck of cards that Penjira had. And on these cards, much in the same way that a standard deck of cards has a jack, a queen, a king, a joker, there was images painted on. But instead of a jack or a king or a queen, there was a bonfire and an ogre. And as they flip through the book, they realized that all of these pictures were hand-painted. And Sakura remarked that this paint was the same one that Sai uses, leading her to the conclusion that these were hand-painted by Hagoromo. Sasuke fails to realize what this has to do with astronomy, to which Sakura, by the way, who hard carries this entire light novel, says that each of these paintings is meant to represent specific constellations. However, since they were in the land of Ridaku and only Sakura and Sasuke know the constellations above Konoha, these images would require study from both of them. But as Sasuke flipped through the pages, he couldn't help but think that these paintings seemed eerily familiar. And as they got to the back of the book, they realized on the back of the book there was the symbol of Konoha, which perplexed both of them, because Konoha had only existed for about 100 years, but Hagoromo lived almost 2,000 years ago. The next day, Sasuke's in his cell looking at the lantern that's keeping his cell lit. And as he stares at the flame, it reminds him of Kurama. And it's at that moment that Sasuke realizes that the eerie similarity he saw in the pages of this book was because these were paintings of the tailed beasts. Sasuke brings this information to Sakura, to which she agrees because her hypothesis stated that every single one of these drawings correlated to a month on the calendar. That is to say that the drawing of Kurama correlates to a fire constellation only visible in September, the 9th month, meaning that the constellation of the Ten Tails would appear in October. But the problem is that still leaves 2 months, to which Sasuke and Sakura both assume are meant to represent Tataru and Hagoromo. And once Sasuke and Sakura are done checking out their astrological charts, Sakura informs Sasuke that she was actually able to break into Zansuru's office, and Zanzuru will soon be visited by a messenger from the Prime Minister of Ridaku. Sakura then intercepts this messenger, finds out all the information in terms of the relationship between said messenger and Zanzuru, and then knocks him out, hides him, takes his form, and Sasuke takes the form of his cane. Sakura wanted to find out as much information about the messenger as possible so that she wouldn't walk into Zanzuru's office and be acting super weird. And it's at this point that Sakura and her Sasuke cane enters Zanzuru's office. Sakura distracts Zanzuru while she quite literally rolls Sasuke into the adjoining room, where Sasuke untransforms and uses Earth Release to find a secret door to a hidden chamber. This hidden chamber leads to the basement. While Sasuke tries to create a key out of Earth Release, Sakura keeps Zanzuru occupied, and she asks Zanzuru for his report for the Prime Minister, to which he states that they should be ready to ship out to the land of Ridaku soon. But this is too vague for Sakura, and she dives for specifics. But this makes Zanzuru suspicious, and it's at this point that Zanzuru asks where her cane had gone. And at this very same moment, Sasuke unlocked the door to the basement, causing a noise that Zanzuru turns to. However, Sakura gets his attention back by tapping the real cane on the ground. But alas, Sasuke breaking into the basement seems as though it was for nothing, because after he broke into the basement, all he found was a couple of live chickens and rocks that the prisoners had excavated. A couple of days after this little bit of espionage, Sakura receives a message from Kakashi via Hawk, and this message reveals to Sakura that the Prime Minister of the land of Ridaku has launched an invasion on Nagare Village, which is the pseudo equivalent of the land of Ridaku's hidden village. However, in response to this invasion, a man by the name of Prince Nanara has decided to overthrow the Prime Minister. See, the politics of the land of Ridaku are a bit complicated. There is a royal family, and they're the Nanaras. But there's also the Prime Minister. Think of it like this. The royal family are the Hokage, while the Prime Minister is the daimyo. Kakashi tells Sakura in his message that he's going to be backing the Nanaras, and thus he's heading to the land of Ridaku to back up Prince Nanara. Sakura wants to convey this message to Sasuke, but she can't find him in the mess hall. However, while in the mess hall, she's approached by Sasuke's third cellmate, Gano, who notices that she's now wearing a ring when she didn't used to. Sakura then goes on to talk about her husband and his many redeeming qualities, assuming that Gano doesn't know who her husband is. However, Gano reveals to her that she knows that Sasuke is her husband because Sasuke used to sit by the window that she's sitting by right now before she got there. Gano states that Sasuke used to sit at this window and stare out. However, when Sakura arrived, he stopped doing it, implying that he was no longer looking towards Konoha because he knew Sakura was there with him, but more specifically because as you look out that window, there's a tree with pink flowers. Sakura then heads back to her office, where she thinks about how it's arbitrary that people look up in the sky and decide to see a monkey, much in the same way of how shinobis decide that a certain hand sign resembles one of the 12 zodiacs, because I don't know if you knew this, every single hand sign is one of the 12 zodiac animals. And this leads Sakura to a connection. And while Sakura is off doing the hard work, Sasuke is eating fruit and looking out over the prison when he realizes a small lake. Gigi, who's observing the entirety of the prison with Sasuke at the moment, tells Sasuke that this is a small lake where a meteor fell previously. Sasuke, realizing that that could quite literally be the key that unlocks all of this to save Naruto, tells him he has a stomachache and runs off. And while Sasuke is on his way to the lake, he bumps into Sakura. And Sakura tells Sasuke that the combination of cards that they see in the book is actually hand signs for a specific jutsu, to which Sasuke responds by saying he's found the place that the falling star went, meaning that more likely than not, the polar particles that they need to heal Naruto will be found in this lake. And thus that night, Sakura and Sasuke head down to the lake. And as they head down to the lake, the starry night reflects itself upon the surface of the water. And as they stare upon this reflection of the stars, they remark at how much Sarada would have loved this view. And it's at this point that, believe it or not, Sasuke takes Sakura's hand. That while he's never worried about the strength of their bond, he does regret missing out on her and Sarada's lives. To which Sakura says she understands and that she feels the same. It's at this point that Sakura begins to do the hand seals that are depicted in the book they stole. And as they flip through these pages, Sasuke realized that there's pictures of dragons on the back side of every single one of these pages. Dragons that somewhat reflect the appearance of Menno. But the dragons were said to have been wiped out millions of years ago by a meteorite. But it's at this point that Sasuke remembers that these dragons' bones could be found under the prison, and he thinks once again about the strange excavated rocks he found in the warden's office, and the fact that it was stated that Orochimaru had stole very crucial research from the archive. And it's at this point that Sasuke realizes that Orochimaru most likely broke into the archives to further his research of Edo Tensei. And as Sasuke comes to this conclusion, Sakura completes the hand signs. And in that moment, a beam of light shines down from the sky onto a container in the middle of the lake. And it makes them realize that this had to have been created by the Sage of Six Paths. And since it was created by the Sage of Six Paths, it more likely than not had the polar particles in it. But upon loosing this container from the lake, the ground around the prison began to shake, and dozens of revived dragons shot out of that shaking ground. And it's at this moment that Sasuke instructs Sakura to find Zansaru. And as Sasuke goes to fight these Edo Tensei dragons, Zansaru appears in front of him. However, if you'll remember the rules of Edo Tensei, I've done a whole video about them right here, you'll remember that it doesn't matter if the caster of Edo Tensei is killed. And in fact, killing the caster of Edo Tensei is the worst possible thing you can do, because those Edo Tensei people and or dragons will not be released. They will continue on the mission that was given to them by the caster forever. The only way to get Edo Tensei to stop is to cast the caster under Genjutsu, which can't happen in Zansaru's case, or seal the things that have been Edo Tensei. Sasuke then begins to analyze his options, but becomes curious about Zansaru. And at that moment, he activates his Sharingan and sees that Zansaru only has as much chakra as a regular person, not a shinobi, and therefore there's no way he's the one who's using Edo Tensei. However, before Sasuke can do anything about that, Menno attacks Sasuke from behind. Zansaru then tasks Menno with killing Sasuke and leaves. And while Sasuke now understands that Menno is a reincarnated body and therefore technically can't die, he ponders using Amaterasu against it, considering the fact that Amaterasu against an Edo Tensei body will just burn forever. However, Sasuke decides against it because it would put Menno in excruciable pain for basically ever. And instead of launching Amaterasu, Sasuke begins to sympathize with Menno. You see, Sasuke begins to see Itachi in Menno, a reincarnated body that Menno has no control over. And thus, as Menno lunges at Sasuke, he begins to apologize for hurting Menno earlier. He even goes so far as to try and treat the wounds that he still has from previous battles. Menno is confused and lunges at Sasuke. But now, Sasuke stops resisting and he lets Menno bite his arm. He tells Menno that he's sorry that he got brought back into a world in a body that he can't control. And he promises Menno that he'll return him to the afterlife if he helps him against Zanzuru. As Menno's eyes widen with comprehension and willingness to help Sasuke, Sasuke once again casts Genjutsu onto Menno, except this time it works. At this point, the revived dragons are killing prisoners indiscriminately, and Sakura is trying to find the caster of Edo Tensei, all the while trying to save as many prisoners as possible. And while looking for Zanzuru, she bumps into Gigi, who she explains the situation to and how she's looking for Zanzuru. Gigi then tells her that he's outside in the courtyard. Sakura thanks him and tells him to escape and then heads to the courtyard. However, it's at this moment that Gigi lunges at her and stabs her in the back with a kunai. And it's at this moment that Sakura begins to feel the effects of the poison that once coated Menno's claws. And as her body begins to fail her, Gigi takes the container of polar particles, thanking her for being able to make sense of the map he could make no sense of, and bringing her the particles he'd been looking for so long. It's at this moment that a giant red dragon emerges from the ground and Gigi climbs on top of it, saying that he's sorry for what he did for Sakura because she seems like a kind-hearted person who reminds him of her lover. And as he flies away, the building collapses on Sakura. Sasuke had realized from his conversation with Zanzuru that Gigi was actually the person responsible for casting Edo Tensei, and thus he returned to the prison with Menno, instructing Menno to keep the prisoners safe from the other dragons. Sasuke then headed to the rubble where he believed Sakura was searching and began to search everywhere for her chakra signature but couldn't find it. Eventually, desperation set in and he began to call out to Sakura. Sakura is awoken from unconsciousness when she hears Sasuke screaming, and she tries to muster the strength to call out his name, but the poison is stopping her from doing so. So she uses what little left of her strength she has to push the rubble off of her. However, the problem is, as she pushes the rubble that was on top of her off of her, it causes a secondary cave-in, and even more rubble descends onto her. It's at this moment that Sakura makes peace with her death, and as she begins to fade into unconsciousness once again, Sasuke uncovers the rubble that has fallen onto her. It's at this point that Sasuke pulls her from the rubble and begins to heal her wounds, because yes, Sasuke can also use medical ninjutsu, though not as well as Sakura, mind you. And as the poison's effect begins to fade, Sakura gets her mobility back, and it's at this point that she thanks Sasuke for saving her life, being so overjoyed with the fact that she didn't die that she begins to cry. It's at this point that we're keyed into what Zanzuru and Gigi are doing. Zanzuru and Gigi are shown to be flying on top of their massive red dragon referred to as Titan, and they marvel at the army of dragons they built, and they begin to talk of their plan of joining the prime minister in his assault against the land of Ridaku. However, before they head to help in the assault, they have to kill every single prisoner, and it's at this point that Gigi reminds Zanzuru of his end of the deal, that Zanzuru would bring Gigi the body of his lover. See, the reason that Gigi had done all of this is not because his fiancée left him for somebody else, but because she died, and he wanted to use Edo Tensei to bring her back. And it's at this moment that Gigi notices some prisoners have survived, so he sticks his army of dragons onto them. However, this group of prisoners is protected by Menno, who Zanzuru now sees is no longer under his control. And even though these dragons are significantly smaller than Menno, they begin to outnumber him. And as things look bleak for Menno, Sasuke swoops in. And as Sasuke draws the attention of all of the smaller dragons, a dragon that is twice the size of Menno appears. Zanzuru states that this will be the dragon that finishes off the traitorous Menno. However, it's at that point that it's revealed that the strength of a dragon is actually tied to its master. And since Menno's master is now Sasuke, and the dragon that's twice the size of Menno's master is Gigi, Menno defeats the dragon. And after Menno defeats this much larger dragon, Sakura joins the battle. And upon seeing this, Gigi volunteers to deal with her himself, leaving Menno and Sasuke to Zanzuru. And thus Zanzuru sicks every single one of the revived dragons onto Menno and Sasuke. Sasuke contemplates ending the entire battle with a Susanoo, but when he senses Menno's will to protect Sasuke, he decides otherwise. Instead, he takes Menno and throws him at Zanzuru. However, Zanzuru calls one of the dragons that he's revived to him and flies out of the way of Menno. However, since Zanzuru has now left Titan, the massive red dragon, it's up to Menno to defeat Titan. Sasuke tells Menno to cut Titan's tendons, and since they're fighting on the lake bed of the lake that held the polar particles, the weight of the dragon after losing its tendons makes it sink into the mud, where it becomes stuck. And this annoys Zanzuru, so he commands all of the revived dragons to free Titan. However, since Zanzuru is not the summoner of these dragons, he can only have one command to these dragons active at any given moment, and thus the dragon that was supposed to be flying him away from the battle began to fly towards Titan, launching him from the dragon and splattering him off the ground, and thus effectively canceling the order of saving the Titan because the person who had ordered them is now dead. And thus all the dragons referred to their last command given by a living person, Gigi, when he ordered all of them to kill all of the prisoners. And it's at this point that Sasuke tells Menno to head back to the Institute to protect the prisoners. But as they're heading back, they realize there's a messenger hawk from Kakashi. And the note from Kakashi reveals to Sasuke that the prince has been successful in his battle against the prime minister and is heading to the capital to assume his role as king. All the while, Sakura is in heated combat with a numerous amount of revived dragons. But as Sakura goes on to fight all of these revived dragons, she realizes that a large majority of these revived dragons are actually herbivores and thus aren't built for direct combat, though they're being commanded into combat, and no matter how grievous the wounds they undergo, they have to continue fighting because they'll always revive. And in order to end the suffering of these dragons and all of the prisoners dying to their hands, Sakura realizes she needs to get to Gigi as fast as possible. However, it's Gigi who finds her first. Gigi lunges at Sakura with another poison-tipped kunai, and she dodges and flings rubble at him that distracts him momentarily. And while he's distracted, she disappears. However, she's spotted by one of the dragons who confers her location to Gigi, and thus Gigi flies to her location, stopping her retreat with an Earth-style mud wall. And as Gigi approaches her, he suddenly realizes he can't move. And it's at this point that Sakura reveals that she had laid a trap for him, and that trap was connected to a seal on his wrist. See, Sakura had realized the first time that Gigi ever came to the infirmary that he had too much chakra to be a regular person, and thus she placed the seal on him as a precaution. And as Gigi panics and tries to break out of this seal, he feels an intense aura of malicious chakra. And it's at that moment that he sees Sasuke and Menno are bearing down on him. It's at this point that he accepts his loss. Sasuke then takes the polar particles from Gigi and tells Gigi he'll be turned over to the Ridaku government. But Gigi requests a favor first and reveals to Sasuke that he's actually from the Hidden Sand and that he was hired by the Ridaku government to train an army of ninja. Specifically, he was hired by the prime minister to train an army of ninja to overthrow the royal family. However, while training this ninja, he fell in love with a maid in the royal palace. And he was so in love with this maid that he wanted to give up his life as a ninja to live a slow life with her. And upon being discovered by the prime minister stated that they could keep their relationship so long as Gigi went to the prison to help Zanzuru in the army building of a dragon army. But Gigi didn't realize that he was helping Zanzuru build an army of undead dragons. Gigi, as far as he knew it, was simply helping Zanzuru build Menno, who would act as a warden to the prison. But just as Gigi's year of service had come to an end, he found out that his lover had died. There was an epidemic sweeping across the capital that had killed her. And it's at this moment that Gigi realized he didn't want to live in a world without her. So it's at this moment that the prime minister and Zanzuru create a new deal for Gigi. If Gigi helps Zanzuru and the prime minister create an army of dragons, they will find his lover's body and reincarnate it. But Sakura disagrees with this sentimentality, claiming that it's not what his lover would have wanted. But surprisingly, Sasuke agrees with the sentimentality, implying that Sasuke agrees with the sentiment that a world without your lover isn't one worth living at all, reaffirming for us as the reader that Sasuke well and truly loves Sakura. But during this conversation, Gigi states that his lover's name was Margo, but Sasuke recognizes that name, stating that Kakashi in his letter about how the prince had won was assisted by a maid named Margo, implying that Margo wasn't actually dead and that Zanzuru and the prime minister had simply manipulated him. Realizing that he had built this army of undead dragons for nothing, Gigi performed the hand seals to release Edo Tensei, and in that moment all of the dragon's souls are released from their reincarnated bodies, including Menno. But before Menno goes, Sasuke makes sure to scratch under his chin and bid him farewell. But not every single dragon is released immediately. There was a dragon that was sent to attack Sakura, and it resisted the release of Edo Tensei, using this moment of its consciousness being freed to attack Gigi instead. And as it struggled against the release of Edo Tensei, it sliced Gigi's neck, getting revenge upon Gigi for pulling it from the Pure Lands. And as Sakura flew to heal his neck, Gigi pled for them to let him die. And as he faded into nothingness, he reflected upon how if he was just more like Sakura and Sasuke, he probably never would have ended up like this. A year later, we cut back to the land of Ridaku. The prince who overthrew the prime minister is now king, and that king is now visiting the rubble that was once the prison. The king rests flowers at the rubble to pay respects to the 62 prisoners who were killed by the dragons. The king then announces that for the last year they've been rebuilding the land of Ridaku. Specifically, the place is destroyed by the war between the prime minister and the prince. But now the king wants to rebuild the prison into the Astronomy Research Institute. It's at this point that he turns to one of his assistants who's there with him, Margot, and asks her if she thinks this is a good idea, to which she says it would be. And it's at that moment that the king turns to his second assistant and tells him to lead the way. That second assistant is Gigi. See, Gigi, even though he didn't want to survive, was still saved by Sakura and Sasuke, and he was given a second lease on life to see his lover, who he thought had died. And upon saving Gigi's life, Sakura and Sasuke return to the village. And the day after returning to the Leaf, Sakura is having tea with Ino, where Ino congratulates her for her new wedding band. And it's at this point that Sakura reveals to Ino that her wedding band contains trace amounts of Sasuke's chakra, and that it was this chakra signature that had allowed Sasuke to find Sakura in the rubble, because Sakura's own chakra pathway had been shut down. And upon returning home from tea, Sarada volunteers to make dinner that night, determined to show off the cooking skills that she had learned from Aruka, who was watching over her while they were both away. Sarada then makes a plethora of meals which contain tomatoes, because tomatoes are Sasuke's favorite food. Sasuke doesn't notice this though, as he continues to eat without saying a word. Sakura then kicks Sasuke and then reminds him that he should thank Sarada for cooking. It's at this point that somebody knocks at their door. It's Shikamaru. He's come to report on Naruto's condition, as well as answer some of the lingering questions that are revolving around Sasuke and Sakura's mission. See, Shikamaru and the rest of Konoha haven't figured out Zanzuru's Genjutsu reflecting eye yet, or why the symbol for Konoha was on the back of something the Sage of Six Paths created. But all Sakura wants to know is how Naruto is doing, to which Shikamaru says not well, telling Sakura that if they don't soon make a breakthrough with the polar particles, Naruto will never be able to use chakra again. Of Sasuke Retsudan, at least. See, the Retsudan series is a 3-book series. It goes Kakashi Retsudan, Sasuke Retsudan, which I basically just read you, and then Naruto Retsudan. And right now, Sasuke Retsudan is actually being made into a manga. And we just recently, as in last week, got the first chapter. Now, for this entire light novel to be turned into a manga, it'll probably take about 8 to 10 weeks, considering that the first 50 pages basically covered the prologue and a little bit of the first chapter. And there's 8 chapters and an epilogue. But this is actually only the first in a long line of light novels being turned into mangas. In fact, we're getting a manga of Konoha Shinden Steam Ninja Scrolls, which was technically briefly animated into Boruto, but the detail they paid to the light novel's actual story is next to nothing in Boruto. And on top of that, we're getting a big Naruto announcement on December 17th, which me and a couple of other people who are tapped into Naruto as a whole believe is going to be the announcement of more Naruto animation coming down the pipe. That is to say, these light novels that are getting turned into mangas will now get turned into animes. 12 to 24 episode seasons that will cover the light novel stories, which will key in your average Naruto fan into the blank period much more than they already are. So what do you say? Are you excited for this second wave of Naruto content coming out? Do you want to hear how Naruto's story ends with me explaining Naruto Retsudan? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And yes, do Sasuke's light novels make me like him more as a character? Yes, they do. So you should read them, because if they can change me, I don't know, they might be able to change you as well.